Elliott Royal. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and our food co-op is Three Sisters Market.
Nekia, McDonald, Jackson, Mississippi, the Lighthouse Black Girl Project.
Keyona, Hough. I'm from Baltimore. UnKIDitional Love Recreation Center, which will eventually have a co-op section.
What models, examples, ancestors, or elders did you look to when starting your co-op?
I'll go first because our name is actually based off of some ancestors. So
Okay.
Three Sisters are three different women that were pioneers in our community. Amy James, Lucille McNeil, and Dorothy Waddy. All different generations, but their pride and empowerment of this Black community has been real significant. We've been out a grocery store for 36 years, and they've just been advocating over and over. So we pay homage to them by calling it Three Sisters.
Yeah. Mine, we're not an actual co-op just yet, but we are in the development stages of a market, and it's called the Rochelle's Market, and that is named, and actually I didn't pick that name, the actual staff at the Lighthouse picked that name in honor of my grandfather, Willie Rochelle. My grandfather, Willie Rochelle, third grade education, but he had his own farm, grocery store, and he was very influential in the community where I grew up in Arkansas. And so that's why he's a huge influence to the work that I do. So, yeah.
So I would say Diallo Roberts and Samuel Burks. My grandfather, who was Samuel, he was very much so a critical thinker. So I wanted to make sure that was a part of the organization. And Diallo Roberts, he didn't have a conventional life, but he's my son's father who was murdered. But he did his own, he had his own way of living and own way of being. And he was okay with standing alone in spite of anything. So I wanted to make sure that that's something that we know when we're building these institutions, that sometimes you have to do it alone, and that's okay. And eventually your tribe will show up.
All right. What surprised you about starting a co-op? Everything.
I know.
You know, especially like I'm surprised how the bringing people along this journey, like it's been almost 4 decades, right? You know, which also I think requires a lot of trust and rebuilding of trust, because they don't, until it's actually in place, they don't believe it. And I think that was really surprising for me, especially some people who have been in the neighborhood for a long period of time. But I also think that they're surprised on how long it takes to fundraise, like all the things, the mechanics in the background. I hadn't even imagined the amount of energy and work that has to go on to develop what we're all working to create.
Agreed. So I was with a food cooperative in Baltimore City, and the hardest thing, I definitely want to agree with what you're saying. I think knowing how much education it takes, especially if you have never been introduced to what a cooperative is, and also working to put it in layman's terms where people can just understand it so that they'll get on board to see how it's helpful. And then the last thing would be making sure that I know that I need it just as much as the community that I'm servicing, and knowing like how hard sometimes that is. Because I always tell people when we were having community meetings, like, as you can see, I don't have an issue with getting the food. I drive, I can eat, I can get whatever I want. But when I think about food insecurity, that also incorporates like not having the best meals or not having the most nutritious meals, and you know how to cook, those type of things. So just because we're talking about food cooperatives in this moment, that's something that I thought that was hard, just seeing like it really is places in Baltimore City where it's no market. You cannot walk there. If you drive, you go into a completely different area. So that was one of the biggest or the hardest things, I would say.
I guess for me, I hadn't been surprised yet. It's been more heartbreak than, you know, and the heartbreak comes from just, you know, creating a thing and thinking that people would support it, or this is what they want. And this is what they said they wanted. And then when you're actually doing the thing for them, how they'll backtrack and just rely on, you know, muscle memory. right? Which is big box grocery store.
Yeah.
And so that's been the biggest thing is that, getting your heart broken in that way and healing from that and then still pushing forward and doing the work.
And I got another one since you mentioned that. I'm also surprised in my conversation with funders how much education I have to have with them. Like,
Yes.
okay, so 36 years without a grocery store, that wasn't a selling point to you.
Right.
Okay. Looking at social determinants of health. Okay, so
Right.
that's not a selling point to you.
uh-huh.
Okay. And it's these educational moments that I actually started looking like, well, how much does it cost to build a big box store?
Right.
Okay, and this is what I'm asking for. Does this help? Like, having to
That's a good-
create
that's a
some
good-
narrative and education to the funder where I think people without their humanity and kindness should be enough. Where I think they're still looking at the ROI and all these other stuff. And I was like, it's just people, right? Like, these people deserve something. And
Because
that's
you gotta
been
speak their
surprising to
language.
me.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotta speak
Yeah.
their language.